Good evening, everyone. Hello, and welcome to Chilliteracy, and happy Wednesday, and happy book week. Happy third day. 'Twas the third day of book week. I hope we're all doing well. It is warm again, which is very annoying. I did have my fan going. Now my fan is off, because otherwise it would be noisy. Merry week indeed. But yes, hello everybody, how are we all doing? I hope you've been enjoying our offerings thus far. We definitely enjoyed Scarlet Hollow on Monday and Sam's excellent selection of accents yesterday. But yes, and yeah, I hope people got to look at the eclipse. Use the front camera on your phone to look over it. Yeah, that doesn't work. I found that out myself as well. I was like, oh, damn. But yeah, I hope people got to see the eclipse. The light here was kind of cool. It's just getting that sort of weird twilight. It was almost like you walked outside and it looked like you were looking outside with sunglasses, even though you weren't. It's great. I enjoyed it. Very nice. But yes, hello everybody. Who we got in? We got everyone in. We got Smallcog, greetings. Parola, hello. Amorous, greetings. Arian, hello. Lady Mephistopheles, hello. Shiny Happy Goth, not here for long, but that's fine. Very, very good that you are here. And Hellmanson, greetings. And Andy, hello. And Queek, howdy indeed. Yeah, eclipse, boo, clouds. We didn't have any clouds here. It was great. But yes, I hope you're all doing all right. You might switch over to doing some line work. Ooh, excuse me. Rather than more sketching. I'm trying to do as much the same phase of the drawing in one go as possible. Sometimes you need a break and do something else for a bit. I could not agree more, Arian. I'm intrigued about what art you are doing. Hi, Lynn. Ooh, from the craft corner table. What are you crafting? Yeah. Tonight we have, because I've sort of been on a I should get into reading more Russian short stories. Oh, Russian audio? Doing well here. Russian literature. There we go. I decided that today was going to be a celebration of Russian short stories. And so I read a bunch, and they're not very cheerful. I know this is a stereotype, but turns out it's a stereotype for a reason. Russian stories are really miserable. I'm very sorry, Russia. But my goodness me. So I guess just general content warning tonight for death. Because there's death in every single one of these stories. I'm not reading one of the ones that I read that I was like, oh, the Big Bee Tapestry. Oh, nice. Yes, that looked really cool. I hope that's going well. Death and Doom, exactly. Death and Doom, and possibly some spies. And, you know, the weather is crap, etc. Yes, I read another. I was like, oh, I'm going to read a bunch of these to see which ones I would like. And one of the ones I read, excuse me, really nicely written. Like the writing, especially at the beginning, was great. And I was like, oh, I like this. Is a great sort of descriptions of a forest and it's these. And I'm not going to go into massive detail, but it starts off with these two, I think, fiancés. Like they're walking in the woods and they just get lost and they come back late, and they come across three men who attack them rather brutally, and that's it. Like they're like, yeah, both of them get attacked in pretty brutal ways, and it's like, is there a moral here? Is there any comment on society? And it's basically men are bad. And it's like, that would be fine if it was, you know, some feminist angle here, but kind of isn't. Moral never go outside, yeah. But it's just kind of, I just read it. It was just like, why did you need to write this short story? never be happy because someone will always ruin it. No, it's not even. It's just not even that. It's just like, don't get lost in the woods at night. I mean, it's sort of existing 101, really. It's just like, don't get lost and walk past 3 men who are obviously going to attack you. Yeah, but like, yeah, I did not enjoy reading that, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to read that to you guys. Yeah, did not like it. General impression of Russian literature as life is shit and then you die. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I have 3 stories for tonight. The first two are sad. The third one is weird, and kind of sort of vague, kind of funny. So it's also about death, though, because God forbid the Russians, you know, it's got to be black comedy. It's got to be dark comedy. Yeah. So I guess apologies if this is a bit grim and miserable tonight, but I was like, oh well, you know, the prose is fantastic and yada yada yada, but it's all miserable. So yes, I'm not 100% sure if the translations that I have linked tonight are going to be the exact ones I'm reading from. I know one is definitely, because it's I managed to find a copy of the book I'm reading from for 2 of them. So yeah, at least one of them is exactly the translation I've got. I'm not sure about the other 2. So if they're not exactly word for word, that'll be why. It's quite hard to find exact translations, especially the third one is like a Penguin edition. So, and those translations I believe are copyrighted. I'm not entirely sure, so I'm not sure they're copyrighted. But you know, it's hard to find them online at least. But yes, yeah. I guess yeah, general content warning for death. Yay. At least it's not the content warning I would have given for the other one, which was just yeah, I didn't enjoy reading it at all. So not going to make you guys have to deal with it. And oh yes, another just general disclaimer here. The first 2 stories there aren't too many Russian names in them. The third one, I am absolutely going to butcher some of these Russian names because they are very long and very complicated. So apologies in advance for butchering Russian names / pronunciation. I am not Russian, do not speak Russian, and only have a fairly stereotyped idea of how to pronounce Russian names. So that's kind of what you're gonna get. Nobody here makes fun of you for getting things like that or accents wrong. I didn't make fun of any accents yesterday. Anyway, if we are all sitting comfortably, let's check the text. Did I make fun of you yesterday? I don't think I did I? Maybe we should keep a tally. I was just listening. You did just now in the intro. What? Oh, yeah, well that was with love. Oh dear. Anyway, yes, we shall, if we are all sitting comfortably, and with our most miserable hats on, and maybe some vodka nearby. Okay, now I am just being stereotypically slightly Russia-ist. Then oh, nice. Okay, sorry. Just reading Lady Mephistopheles' thing there. I'm not going to read it all out, but yes. Vodka nearby, but it's Polish. Are you in trouble? I don't know. Ask the Poles. Fight. No, don't. Yes. Anyway, we shall begin with the first story of tonight. Hide and Seek by Fyodor Sologub. Everything in Lelechka's nursery was bright, pretty, and cheerful. Lelechka's sweet voice charmed her mother. Lelechka was a delightful child. There was no other such child, there never had been, and there never would be. Lelechka's mother, Serafina Alexandrova, was sure of that. Lelechka's eyes were dark and large, her cheeks were rosy, her lips were made for kisses and for laughter. But it was not these charms in Lelechka that gave her mother the keenest joy. Lelechka was her mother's only child. That was why every movement of Lelechka's bewitched her mother. It was great bliss to hold Lelechka on her knees and to fondle her, to feel the little girl in her arms, a thing as lively and as chipper as a little bird. To tell the truth, Serafima Alexandrovna felt happy only in the nursery. She felt cold with her husband. Perhaps it was because he himself loved the cold. He loved to drink cold water and to breathe cold air. He was always fresh and cool, with a frigid smile, and wherever he passed, cold currents seemed to move in the air. The Nezletsyevs, Sergei Modestovich and Serafima Alexandrovna, had married without love or calculation because it was the accepted thing. He was a young man of 35, she a young woman of 25. Both were of the same circle and well brought up. He was expected to take a wife, and the time had come for her to take a husband. It even seemed to Serafima Alexandrovna that she was in love with her future husband, and this made her happy. He looked handsome and well-bred. His intelligent grey eyes always preserved a dignified expression, and he fulfilled his obligations of a fiancé with irreproachable gentleness. The bride was good-looking. She was a tall, dark-eyed, dark-haired girl, somewhat timid but very tactful. He was not after her dowry, though it pleased him to know that she had something. He had connections, and his wife came of good, influential people. This might, at the proper opportunity, prove useful. Always irreproachable and tactful, Nesletyev got on in his position not so fast that anyone should envy him, nor yet so slow that he should envy anyone else. Everything came in the proper measure and at the proper time. After their marriage, there was nothing in the manner of Sergei Modestovich to suggest anything wrong to his wife. Later, however, when his wife was about to have a child, Sergei Modestovich established connections elsewhere of a light and temporary nature. Serafima Alexandrovna found this out, and to her own astonishment was not particularly hurt. She awaited her infant with a restless anticipation which swallowed every other feeling. A little girl was born. Serafima Alexandrovna gave herself up to her. At the beginning she used to tell her husband, with rapture, all the joyous details of Lelechka's existence. But she soon found that he listened to her without the slightest interest, and only from politeness. Serafima Alexandrovna drifted farther and farther away from him. She loved her little girl with the ungratified passion that other women, deceived in their husbands, show their chance young lovers. "Mamochka, let's play priatki," hide and seek, cried Lelechka, pronouncing the R like the L, so that the word sounded platki. This charming inability to speak always made Serafima Alexandrovna smile with tender rapture. Lelechka then ran away, stamping with her plump little legs over the carpets, and hid herself behind the curtains near her bed. "Tiu, tiu, Mamochka!" she cried out in her sweet, laughing voice, as she looked out with a single roguish eye. "Where is my baby girl?" the mother asked, as she looked for Lelechka and made believe that she did not see her. And Lelechka poured out her rippling laughter from her hiding-place. Then she came out a little further, and her mother, pretending that she had only just caught sight of her, seized her by her little shoulders and exclaimed joyously, "Here she is, my Lelechka!" Lelechka laughed long and merrily, her head close to her mother's knees, and all of her cuddled up between her mother's white hands. Her mother's eyes glowed with passionate emotion. "Now, Mamochka, you hide," said Lelechka as she ceased laughing. Her mother went to hide. Lelechka turned away as if not to see, but watched her Mamochka stealthily all the time. Mamma hid behind the cupboard and exclaimed, "Tiu tiu, baby girl!" Lelechka ran round the room and looked into all the corners, making believe, as her mother had done before, that she was seeking, though she really knew all the time where Mamochka was standing. "Where's my Mamochka?" asked Lelechka. "She's not here, and she's not here," she kept on repeating as she ran from corner to corner. Her mother stood with suppressed breathing, her head pressed against the wall, her hair somewhat disarranged. A smile of utter bliss played on her red lips. The nurse, Feodor, a good-natured and fine-looking, if somewhat stupid woman, smiled as she looked at her mistress with her characteristic expression, which seemed to say that it was not for her to object to a gentlewoman's caprices. She thought to herself, "The mother is like a little child herself. Look how excited she is." Lelechka was getting nearer her mother's corner. Her mother was growing more absorbed every moment by her interest in the game. Her heart beat with short, quick strokes, and she pressed even closer to the wall, disarranging her hair still more. Lelechka suddenly glanced towards her mother's corner and screamed with joy. "I found you!" she cried out loudly and joyously, mispronouncing her words in a way that again made her mother happy. She pulled her mother by her hands to the middle of the room. They were merry and they laughed, and Lelechka again hid her head against her mother's knees and went on lisping and lisping, without end, her sweet little words, so fascinating yet so awkward. Sergei Modestovich was approaching the nursery at this moment. Through the half-closed doors he heard the laughter, the joyous outcries, the sound of romping. He entered the nursery, smiling his genial, cold smile. He was irreproachably dressed, and he looked fresh and erect, and he spread round him an atmosphere of cleanliness, freshness, and coldness. He entered in the midst of the lively game, and distressed them all by his radiant coolness. Even Feodor felt abashed, now for her mistress, now for herself. Serafima Alexandrovna at once became calm and apparently cold, and this mood communicated itself to the little girl, who ceased to laugh, but instead looked silently and intently at her father. Sergei Modestovich gave a swift glance round the room. He liked coming here, where everything was beautifully arranged. This was done by Serafima Alexandrovna, who wished to surround her little girl, from her very infancy, only with the loveliest things. Serafima Alexandrovna dressed herself tastefully. This, too, she did for Lelechka, with the same end in view. One thing Sergei Modestovich had not become reconciled to, and this was his wife's almost continuous presence in the nursery. "It's just as I thought. I knew that I'd find you here," he said with a derisive and condescending smile. They left the nursery together. As he followed his wife through the door, Sergei Modestovich said rather differently, in an incidental way, laying no stress on his words, "Don't you think that it would be well for the little girl if she were sometimes without your company? Merely, you see, that the child should feel its own individuality," he explained in answer to Serafima Alexandrovna's perplexed glance. "She's still so little," said Serafima Alexandrovna. "In any case, this is but my humble opinion. I don't insist. It's your kingdom there." "I'll think it over," his wife answered, smiling as he did, coldly but genially. Then they began to talk of something else. Nurse Feodor, sitting in the kitchen that evening, was telling the silent housemaid Daria and the talkative old cook Agathia about the young lady of the house, and how the child loved to play Pryatki with her mother. She hides her little face and cries, "Tiu, tiu!" "And the Barinya herself is like a little one," added Fedosia, smiling. Agathia listened and shook her head ominously, while her face became grave and reproachful. "That the Barinya does it, well, that's one thing, but that the young lady does it, that's bad." "Why?" asked Fedosia with curiosity. This expression of curiosity gave her face the look of a wooden, roughly painted doll. "Yes, that's bad," repeated Agathia with conviction. "Terribly bad." "Well?" said Fedosia, the ludicrous expression of curiosity on her face becoming more emphatic. "She'll hide and hide and hide away," said Agathia in a mysterious whisper as she looked cautiously toward the door. "What are you saying?" exclaimed Fedosia, frightened. "It's the truth I'm saying. Remember my words," Agathia went on with the same assurance and secrecy. "It's the surest sign." The old woman had invented this sign, quite suddenly, herself, and she was evidently very proud of it. Lelechka was asleep, and Serafima Alexandrovna was sitting in her own room, thinking with joy and tenderness of Lelechka. Lelechka was in her thoughts, first a sweet, tiny girl, then a sweet, big girl, then again a delightful little girl. And so until the end she remained Mamma's little Lelechka. Serafima Alexandrovna did not even notice that Fedosia had come up to her and paused. Fedosia had a worried, frightened look. "Barinya, Barinya," she said quietly in a trembling voice. Serafima Alexandrovna gave a start. Fedosia's face made her anxious. "What is it, Fedosia?" she asked with great concern. "Is there anything wrong with Lelechka?" "No, Barinya," said Fedosia as she gesticulated with her hands to reassure her mistress and to make her sit down. "Lelechka is asleep, may God be with her. Only I'd like to say something. You see, Lelechka is always hiding herself. That's not good." Fedosia looked at her mistress with fixed eyes, which had grown round from fright. "Why not good?" asked Serafima Alexandrovna, with vexation, succumbing involuntarily to vague fears. "I can't tell you how bad it is," said Fedosia, and her face expressed the most decided confidence. "Please speak in a sensible way," observed Serafima Alexandrovna dryly. "I understand nothing of what you are saying." "You see, Barinya, it's a kind of omen," explained Fedosia abruptly, in a shamefaced way. "Nonsense," said Serafima Alexandrovna. She did not wish to hear any further as to the sort of omen it was, and what it foreboded. But somehow a sense of fear and sadness crept into her mood, and it was humiliating to feel that an absurd tale should disturb her beloved fancies, and should distress her so deeply. "Of course I know that gentlefolk don't believe in omens, but it's a bad omen, Barinya," Fedosia went on in a doleful voice. "The young lady will hide and hide." Suddenly she burst into tears, sobbing out loudly, "She'll hide and hide and hide away, angelic little soul, in a damp grave," she continued, as she wiped her tears with her apron and blew her nose. "Who told you all this?" asked Serafima Alexandrovna in an austere, low voice. "Agathia says so, Barinya," answered Fedosia. "It's she that knows." "Knows?" exclaimed Serafima Alexandrovna in irritation, as if she wished to protect herself somehow from this sudden anxiety. "What nonsense! Please don't come to me with any such notions in the future. Now you may go." Fedosia, dejected, her feelings hurt, left her mistress.
"What nonsense! As if Lelechka could die," thought Serafima Alexandrovna, trying to conquer the feeling of cold fear which took possession of her at the mere thought of Lelechka's death. Serafima Alexandrovna, upon reflection, attributed these women's beliefs in omens to ignorance. She saw clearly that there could be no possible connection between a child's quite normal diversion and the continuation of the child's life. She made a special effort that evening to occupy her mind with other matters, but her thoughts returned involuntarily to the fact that Lelechka loved to hide. When Lelechka was still quite small, and had learned to distinguish between her mother and her nurse, she sometimes, sitting in her nurse's arms, made a sudden roguish grimace and hid her laughing face in the nurse's shoulder. Then she would look out with a sly glance. Of late, in those rare moments of the Barinya's absence from the nursery, Fedosia had again taught Lelechka to hide. And when Lelechka's mother, on coming in, saw how lovely the child looked when she was hiding, she herself began to play hide-and-seek with her tiny daughter. The next day, Serafima Alexandrovna, absorbed in her happy cares for Lelechka, had forgotten Fedosia's words of the day before. But when she returned to the nursery, after having ordered the dinner, and she heard Lelechka suddenly cry, "Tiu, tiu!" from under the table, a feeling of fear suddenly took hold of her. Though she reproached herself at once for this unfounded, superstitious dread, nevertheless she could not enter wholeheartedly into the spirit of Lelechka's favourite game, and she tried to divert Lelechka's attention to something else. Lelechka was a lovely and obedient child. She eagerly complied with her mother's new wishes. But as she had contracted the habit of hiding from her mother in some corner, and of crying out "Tiu, tiu!" so even that day she returned more than once to the game. Serafima Alexandrovna tried desperately to amuse Lelechka. This was not so easy, because restless, threatening thoughts obtruded themselves constantly. Why does Lelechka keep on recalling the "tiu, tiu"? Why does she not get tired of the same thing, of eternally closing her eyes and of hiding her face? Perhaps, thought Serafima Alexandrovna, she is not as strongly drawn to the world as other children who are attracted by many things. If this is so, is it not a sign of organic weakness? Is it not a germ of the unconscious non-desire to live? Serafima Alexandrovna was tormented by presentiments. She felt ashamed of herself for ceasing to play hide-and-seek with Lelechka before Fedosia. But this game had become agonizing to her, all the more agonizing because she had a real desire to play it, and because something drew her very strongly to hide herself from Lelechka and to seek out the hiding child. Serafima Alexandrovna herself began the game once or twice, though she played it with a heavy heart. She suffered as if she were committing an evil deed with full consciousness. It was a sad day for Serafima Alexandrovna. Lelechka was about to fall asleep. No sooner had she climbed into her little bed, protected by a network on all sides, than her eyes began to close with fatigue. Her mother covered her with a blue blanket. Lelechka drew her sweet little hands from under the blanket and stretched them out to embrace her mother. Her mother bent down. Lelechka, with a tender expression on her sleepy face, kissed her mother and let her head fall on the pillow. As her hands hid themselves under the blanket, Lelechka whispered, "The hands, tiu, tiu." The mother's heart seemed to stop. Lelechka lay there so small, so frail, so quiet. Lelechka smiled gently, closed her eyes, and said quietly, "The eyes, tiu, tiu." Then even more quietly, "Lelechka, tiu, tiu." With these words she fell asleep, her face pressing the pillow. She appeared so small and so frail under the blanket that covered her. Her mother looked at her with sad eyes. Serafima Alexandrovna remained standing over Lelechka's bed a long while, and she kept looking at Lelechka with tenderness and fear. "I'm a mother. Is it possible that I shouldn't be able to protect her?" she thought, as she imagined the various ills which might befall Lelechka. She prayed long that night, but the prayer did not relieve her sadness. Several days passed. Lelechka caught cold. The fever came upon her at night. When Serafima Alexandrovna, awakened by Fedosia, came to Lelechka and saw her looking so hot, so restless and so tormented, she instantly recalled the evil omen, and from the first moment a hopeless despair took possession of her. A doctor was called, and everything that was done that is usual on such occasions, but the inevitable happened. Serafima Alexandrovna tried to console herself with the hope that Lelechka would get well and would again laugh and play. Yet this seemed to her an unthinkable happiness, and Lelechka grew feebler from hour to hour. All simulated calmness, so as not to frighten Serafima Alexandrovna, but their masked faces only made her sad. Nothing made her so unhappy as the reiterations of Fedosia, uttered between sobs. "She hid herself and hid herself! Ah, Lelechka!" But the thoughts of Serafima Alexandrovna were confused, and she could not quite grasp what was happening. Fever was consuming Lelechka, and there were times when she lost consciousness and spoke in delirium. But when she returned to herself, she bore her pain and fatigue with a gentle good nature. She smiled feebly at her Mamochka, so that her Mamochka should not see how much she suffered. 3 days passed, as horrible as a nightmare. Lelechka grew quite feeble. She did not know that she was dying. She glanced at her mother with her dimmed eyes, and lisped in a scarcely audible, hoarse voice, "Tiu-tiu, Mamochka! Make tiu-tiu, Mamochka!" Serafima Alexandrovna hid her face behind the curtains near Lelechka's bed. How tragic! "Mamochka!" called Lelechka in an almost inaudible voice. Lelechka's mother bent over her, and Lelechka, her vision grown still more dim, saw her mother's pale, despairing face for the last time. "A white Mamochka," whispered Lelechka. Mamochka's white face became blurred, and everything grew dark before Lelechka. She caught the edge of the bed cover feebly with her hands and whispered, "Tiu-tiu." Something rattled in her throat. Lelechka opened and again closed her rapidly paling lips, and died. Serafima Alexandrovna was in dumb despair as she left Lelechka and went out of the room. She met her husband. "Lelechka is dead," she said in a quiet, dull voice. Sergei Modestovich looked anxiously at her pale face. He was struck by the strange stupor in her formerly animated, handsome features. Lelechka was dressed, placed in a little coffin, and carried into the parlour. Serafima Alexandrovna was standing by the coffin and looking dully at her dead child. Sergei Modestovich went to his wife and, consoling her with cold, empty words, tried to draw her away from the coffin. Serafima Alexandrovna smiled. "Go away," she said quietly. "Lelechka is playing. She'll be up in a minute." "Sima, my dear, don't distress yourself," said Sergei Modestovich in a whisper. "You must resign yourself to your fate." "She'll be up in a minute," persisted Serafima Alexandrovna, her eyes fixed on the dead little girl. Sergei Modestovich looked around him cautiously. He was afraid of the unseemly and of the ridiculous. Sima, don't distress yourself, he repeated. This would be a miracle, and miracles do not happen in the 19th century. No sooner had he said those words than Sergei Modestovich felt their irrelevance to what had happened. He was confused and annoyed. He took his wife by the arm and cautiously led her away from the coffin. She did not oppose him. Her face seemed calm and her eyes were dry. She went into the nursery and began to walk round the room, looking into those places where Lelechka used to hide herself. She walked all about the room, and bent now and then to look under the table or under the bed, and kept on repeating cheerfully, "Where is my little one? Where is my Lelechka?" After she had walked round the room once, she began to make her quest anew. Feodor, motionless, with dejected face, sat in a corner and looked frightened at her mistress. Then she suddenly burst out sobbing, and she wailed loudly. "She hid herself, our Lelechka, our angelic little soul." Serafima Alexandrovna trembled, paused, cast a perplexed look at Feodor, began to weep, and left the nursery quietly. Sergei Modestovich hurried the funeral. He saw that Serafina Alexandrovna was terribly shocked by her sudden misfortune, and as he feared for her reason, he thought she would more readily be diverted and consoled when Lelechka was buried. Next morning, Serafima Alexandrovna dressed with particular care for Lelechka. When she entered the parlour, there were several people between her and Lelechka. The priest and deacon paced up and down the room. Clouds of blue smoke drifted in the air, and there was a smell of incense. There was an oppressive feeling of heaviness in Serafima Alexandrovna's head as she approached Lelechka. Excuse the motorbike. Lelechka lay there, still and pale, and smiled pathetically. Serafima Alexandrovna laid her cheek upon the edge of Lelechka's coffin and whispered, "Tiu, tiu, little one." The little one did not reply. And then there was some kind of stir and confusion around Serafima Alexandrovna. Strange, unnecessary faces bent over her. Someone held her, and Lelechka was carried away somewhere. Serafima Alexandrovna stood up erect, sighed in a lost way, smiled, and called loudly, "Lelechka!" Lelechka was being carried out. The mother threw herself after the coffin with despairing sobs, but was held back. She sprang behind the door through which Lelechka had passed, sat down there on the floor, and as she looked through the crevice, she cried out, "Lelechka! Tiu, tiu!" Then she put her head out from behind the door and began to laugh. Lelechka was quickly carried away from her mother, and those who carried her seemed to run rather than walk. The end. Yeah, sorry about that one. Bloody servants going all like, "Oh, it's because of hide and seek." Yeah, hide and seek doesn't kill people, by the way. Unless you're hiding in a really stupid place. But yes. Cheerful. Lovely and cheerful. Moral of the story, if you don't play with kids, they die. Yep. Yay! Right, let's put the next one up. Beep. Sorry. Don't mind me, just leaning over my microphone so I can do this. So yes. That's a fun one. And if we're all ready for another miserable one, This doesn't involve any kid death. But that doesn't really fill you with optimism. So, if we're ready for another cheerful one, then I will read our next story for tonight, which is Vasily Suchkov by Tolstoy. I'll put it this way. If only our children had some understanding, like we old people have, even that would be something to praise the Lord for. Mustn't praise the Lord nowadays, Timofey Ivanovitch. Well then, praise labour. Don't pick holes. I am an old man. Look here. We did fight, didn't we? We did, Timofey Ivanovitch. Sorry, Ivanovitch, even. Strictly speaking, mine is a quiet occupation. I didn't fight, but you fought, that's a fact. I like your way of answering, Ivan Ivanovitch. You are a straightforward person. The kind of person we need. Waiter, another couple of bottles and 2 salmon sandwiches. Well then, we suffered, didn't we, Ivan? Yeah, Ivan, why is this so hard to say? Why, Ivan Ivanovitch? No question about that. When the Putilovsky works produced nothing but cigarette lighters, do you realise what it was for us, old skilled men, to look on? Who's to answer? Go on, blame the White Guards, the Allies. Quite, they'll say, quite. But who started? Did we overthrow everything just to see the biggest works in the Union grind cigarette lighters? It is all right now they are building timber carriers in the wharves. All the shops working to full capacity. But in those days one lost hope. Felt like lying down in the midst of all that destruction and giving up the ghost. Isn't that suffering? And who set the works running again? See these hands? Even the bones are saturated with machine oil. See how black the fingers are. It means that I've got the right to speak. And I say this. Our children are no damn good. Did they fight? No. Did they suffer? No. They gather in the fruits. And we are an out-of-date lot for them. My Mishka is a young communist. All right, mustn't touch him. Say a word to him, you'll get back 10. All right. Let him learn, let him try to get into the front ranks, follow the great humanitarian ideal. Though it would be best to give him an occasional shaking, but he'll straighten out. Barking impertinently at every word you say doesn't yet mean his father is a fool. All right, I say, all right. Mishka is an honest lad. But as for my Kolka, well, as for him, that's where I draw the line. He wears loose bags and a hunting knife, works one day and spends the next by the sea with the girls. And mark you, Ivan Ivanovitch, I mustn't touch him with a stick or take him by the hair. What's the matter with his hair? Is it sacred? But he straightway goes off to complain about me, and at the very best I get a reprimand for torturing the child. And all the while Kolka's future is obvious. 10 years with solitary confinement. Do you know what he answers me? You've got to prove to me, old cock, why I should work when I want to go out. In what book is it written, old cock, that I should neglect my pleasures? And that scamp Kolka says it all so confidently as if he's the ruling class. And if you hit me, he says, I'll cut you a hole through the stomach. And plays with his knife, his eyes burning. Desperate position you're in, Timofey Ivanovitch. All right, I won't live to see the final triumph. I am an old man. But I want my children, my grandchildren, to speak 3 languages, Ivan Ivanovitch. I want them to fly about the earth in airships, as simple as sitting at home. I want their hands to know fine and brainy work. I weep, Ivan Ivanovitch, because my mother gave me life at the wrong moment. I was born for knocking brick walls down with my head. We are the heroic generation, Ivan Ivanovitch. Our children and grandchildren come after us. We have done the dirty work. But what are they like? That's the tormenting question. For instance, down our way, outside the Narva gate, there are new blocks being built for working men, houses on foreign lines with balconies and baths. Meaning that there is a hint that the workman won't have to live like a pig now. I come home from the wharf, I wash and sit down to dinner very orderly. My family is well groomed. We eat in a clean room and our conversation is about lofty matters, about human progress. That's right, isn't it? And now, what are the facts? This spring I move into a new house. Good. And here I am going home from the wharf, and before I get home, my overcoat is robbed off my shoulders in an alley, for one thing. I am rushed by people with hunting knives, and my belly is cut open for a bit of sport, for another thing. And if I escape these 2 accidents and come home safe and sound, my neat dining table is already occupied by Kolka, his ugly dial just about reeking with obscenity. No, Ivan Ivanovitch, we have expected many misfortunes, but this misfortune is unexpected. Timofey Ivanovitch pushed the beer bottles to one side, leant over the little table close to Ivan Ivanovitch's face, and raised his finger. A secret. Haven't told anyone yet. Even my relations don't know. I am beginning to fear my son-in-law, Varva's husband, Vasily Alexeyevich Suchkov. I don't trust him. He is a suspicious man. Chuck it, Timofey Ivanovitch. Really, you are beginning to see things. True, no foundation at all, but I get a bitter taste in my mouth whenever I think of him. This conversation took place in June, in a beer shop on the Petersburgsky side. 2 old friends chatted together. One was Zavlin, Timofey Ivanovitch, a workman on the Putolovsky wharf, and the other Ivan Ivanovitch Farafono, employed by the River Conservancy as keeper of the shallow riverbank by the Petrovsky Island. It was a windless, sunny day, a Sunday. The beer shop was almost empty and filled with a sour smell and stray whiffs of crayfish. The droning of flies against a plate-glass window, which displayed the words Stenka Razin beer written backwards, suggested a midday languidness. The friends finished up their beer, smoked for a while, paid the bill and went out. The blue sky with its summer stillness was spread above the miserable streets of the Petersburgsky side. And yet, said Timofey Ivanovitch, and yet my son-in-law is an inscrutable person. After that they walked side by side along the broken pavement strewn with the pods of sunflower seeds. An aeroplane floated in the sky above. So did the clouds, white as the snow. Silence, the monotony of a Sunday. Flower pots in the windows. Some children were playing ball on a vacant site among ruins of brick, and the smallest of them sat amongst pigweeds, weeping. A girl in a light summer frock walked towards the 2 friends. Her youthful neck, her shoulders and her slender hands showed a golden sunburn. Fair, curly hair covered her pretty head like a cap. Wider and wider grinned the friends as they looked at the approaching girl. The day was fair, the drink had warmed their hearts, and it was a pleasure to look at youth browned by the sun. "Your daughter is first class, meets my approval," said Timofey Ivanovitch. "Nastya, dear, where are you off to?" asked Ivan Ivanovitch, pleased. She raised her blue eyes and her face became sweeter still. She stopped, sighed slightly. "I promised to call on Varvara Timofeyevna today." "I have been over at the daughter's today." Timofey Ivanovitch, with a sudden frown, began to look down under his feet. "I have been there, and I could not stand it for an hour. I shan't go again for 6 months. You've got no business there either, Nastya. To listen to the discourses of Citizen Suchkov. No point. Yes." Nastya raised a narrow eyebrow, shrugged a pretty shoulder. She could not see why Timofey Ivanovitch had become angry. The 3 stood silent for a moment. Then Nastya smiled at her father and went her way, so upright that one could see at a glance there was nothing wrong with her. "A clean girl she is," said Ivan Ivanovitch, looking after her. "That's just it. She'd better not visit Varvara. No good will come of it." A Sunday afternoon is tedious enough on Peterburgsky side, in streets where no occasional tram ever appears. It is deserted and miserable, and it seems as though behind the dusty little windows, behind the dilapidated gateways, in little wooden houses built round courtyards overgrown with weeds, in little wooden houses that through a single attic window look through ruined buildings, the side would like to slumber forever. Leave it alone, that's all. Here's a pink house with 3 stories. It has just been painted. The drain pipes have been repaired. The long blots of plaster have not yet been washed off the windows. It has a blue sign, Peterburgsky District Workmen's Cooperative Society. And then right down to the river, weather-beaten walls, fences, ruins, a tobacco stall by the war cripple who is bored to slumber, a woman with penny sweets, and sunflower seeds by the side of the drain pipe. Seeds, seeds. Surely the earth and the sun have not given rise to men just in order that he might crack these damned seeds while shuffling without thought, without passion, along the dreary pavement. Here's a fence made of rusty corrugated iron. Behind it, on a vacant site, there are a few beds with potatoes, and around them heaps of broken stone overgrown with stinging nettle. A goat wanders about. A woman sits on a stone, with her chin on her fist, a baby on her lap, and stares vacantly. Here's another vacant site. By the side of the pavement there are 3 steps, all that is left of the front entrance. And it seems as though one can walk up these steps into an unseen house. Its outlines can still be seen. On the right, a triangle on the wall of the neighbouring house marks the roof that has disappeared, and lower down the remains of blue wallpaper with flowers. On the left, a brick arch still exists, and there is a door leading into the open air. If you ask the old keeper, who sits by the gateway on the other side of the street, he will tell you that the 3 steps did in fact lead to a 2-storied house. It was a good wooden house. Some of the tenants have disappeared, some have died, others live on the Vasilevsky. And the owner of the unseen house is the old man himself, now the keeper. Thus he sits all day under the gateway opposite, looking back into the past. Higher up, a close-cropped girl is reading a book, and sitting on the sill of an open window with her bony knees raised. A citizen in brown knitted trousers crosses the road with a teapot in his hand and leers at the maid in the window. At the sight of Nastya, he turns towards her. "Begging your pardon, why are you walking alone?" "Least of all your concern," retorts Nastya as she passes with a haughty look at the knitted trousers. "All matters of skirt are my concern. What's the hurry? They'll come to the same thing in the end, so why not take the bird in hand?" Nastya rounds the corner and enters the courtyard of Varvara Timofeevna's house. In one of the open windows of her flat, on the 2nd floor, she could see Suchkov's strong back clad in a grey shirt with a cycling belt. He was playing a guitar, and the strong nape of his neck reflected the strain. Varvara met Vasily Suchkov last year at the Leshy cinema. He struck her as an interesting man. He was very polite, cold, neatly dressed. Narrow, clean-shaven face, small eyes, a scar on one cheek, near the mouth. During the interval he fixed his eyes on Varvara, who was dark, round-faced and somewhat stout, moved to the seat next to her and lent her the programme. Then he said that he did not smoke from hygienic considerations and offered her some fruit drops. Varvara crushed the fruit drops with her ivory teeth, and probably a merry, eager smile never left her face. Suchkov looked at her mouth with a cool avidity. She liked the way he made haste to define his social position. He was an instructor in a school of surveying. His conversational approach indicated the seriousness of his intentions. Varvara told him that she worked as a packer in a chocolate factory. This seemed to please him. It was clean work, and it followed that the girl must also be clean. During the rest of the performance they exchanged impressions. The film shown was The Bandits of Paris. Suchkov saw Varvara as far as the tram, and next Sunday they again met in a cinema on the Nevsky. After the performance he suggested going to a Caucasian restaurant. Varvara blushed and declined. She yielded to him only after the third visit to a cinema, being under the disturbing influence of The Adventures of Mary Pickford. Suchkov himself offered to have their union legalised at the registry office. He insisted on orderliness before everything else in life, and Varvara moved to his house on the Peterburgsky side. A year has passed since that time. Varvara told her relations that she lived well and could not wish for anything better. But people began to notice that she was getting thinner, fading, losing her happy disposition. It turned out that she was fiercely jealous because during the year she had lived with him, she had not come to know him any better than during the first evening's acquaintance. The table was laid. Through the open door, one could see Varvara in the smoke of the kitchen, busy round a petrol cooker. Suchkov was half-heartedly playing a guitar. Looking diligent, Andrei Matti, a Finnish subject, fair and well-groomed, with bovine eyelashes, sat near him. He was dressed in a new grey suit and wore a pink tie. His straight, thin mouth smiled good-naturedly. He could sit like this for any length of time, discreetly silent. Varvara cast piercing glances at her husband and Matti as she hovered about the kitchen. What are they keeping silent about, I ask you now? Matti wouldn't be hanging around the house just for a how do you do if it wasn't with an object. Suchkov wouldn't be playing him the guitar with a smile. That's the umpteenth Sunday the Finn has turned up with a flower or packet of chocolate for Varvara, and Suchkov has immediately assumed this strange wry smile. It would be good to chuck this saucepan with hot cabbage soup at his ugly face. Varvara's raging heart knew that they were conspiring, that the Finn was urging her husband, enticing him, leading him away, and the husband is willing. No mistake. Would he smile like this otherwise? Playing a polka with scoundrelly variations, the scoundrel. He's trimmed his nails this morning, so that they should not catch against the strings. Oh dear, there's no doubt about it. The Finn has found a girl for him. I say, Varya, quietly called Suchkov, how are you getting on with the rissoles? Or else we'd better sit down to some vodka. Varvara thunderously rattled the saucepans, choking with anger. But that was inopportune, because Matti took advantage of the noise in the kitchen to say weightily, "It's a big inconvenience to be without a cook. Such a decent house should, of course, have a servant. A man with your tastes must have money." Varvara lay in bed with the bedclothes pulled over her head. Suchkov, undressed without hurrying, lay down on his back by her side and began to smoke cigarettes. The light of a northern summer night crept through the dirty glass of the lime-splashed window. Varvara lay as still as a corpse. The clock was ticking on the chest of drawers. Something inside it tripped, groaned, as if existence had become unbearable in this silent bedroom filled with Suchkov's thoughts. It groaned, then recovered and again began to slice off life's seconds, sweeping away their little corpses into the unknown. Suchkov hopped out of bed, went to the dining room, angrily treading on the loose strings of his underwear. He produced out of a drawer in the writing desk a school copybook with the motto, "Grind the granite rock of learning," and sat down near the window to make an entry. 17th of June. Left the office this morning under a pretext of an unendurable toothache. Went to Petrovsky Park. Bathed. Met N. Her constitution comes up to expectations. Spoke to her. Very successfully prepared the ground for the next morning. In the evening made final arrangements with M, though I don't yet know what the work will turn out to be like. But I already feel I am spreading my wings. By the way, M has proposed getting rid of Varvara. Nothing very definite. Perhaps she will understand herself that she should go. Having locked the copybook in the drawer and hidden the key in his purse, Suchkov returned to his bedroom. Looking at the pendulum of the clock, he said, "I am sleepless. Perhaps you will put the kettle on the oil cooker for me." Then Varvara tore off the sheet. She sat up in bed in an unbuttoned frock, dishevelled, her stocking drooping down. She did not care. Let him look at her swollen, tear-stained face. "You didn't know I was on the lake today, did you? You rotter!" She nodded emphatically. "Rotter!" "Don't get abusive," he said icily. "For your language, the way you have hit me in the face, and for the word rotter you have just hurled at me, you might find yourself before the magistrate in no time. Besides, I made no promises that I would limit my requirements to one woman." I know, but there's one thing that's unfortunate for you. The fact that I've got you summed up, Alexeyevich. My eyes are open once and for all. You are a beast, you clean-shaven brute. For the last time, stop it. I shan't stop it, even if you threaten to kill me. Do you think I've a pennyworth of fear for you? You are unclean. Why don't you keep a she-goat instead of a woman? Or this same Nastya under whom you dived this morning? I haven't heard a human word from you during the whole year. You couldn't speak one, my dear, if you tried. Curse these damned rags, your presence! She tore open her dress down to the hem. I had known men before you, 3 men, from our factory. Didn't you know that? Well then, I did. They called me darling, sweetheart, dearest comrade. I gave up the 3rd one just before you. He is still pining for me. Full stop, said Suchkov disdainfully. The details do not interest me. Varvara lowered her head and kept silent for a moment. When she looked at her husband again, her face quivered violently. If you need more women than one, you'll have to use a different receptacle, my friend. Take care, of course, not to catch any disease, but I must tell you about 2 secrets. Suchkov threw a rapid sidelong glance at her. She noticed it and smiled. I am pregnant, Vasily Alexeyevich, the 3rd month. I won't kill the child. I shall bring him into the world, and you will pay maintenance. Oh. Suchkov pulled a wry face and began to pace the room. As to that, we shall wait and see. If you really are pregnant, it does not follow yet that I am the father. The identity of the father is still an open question. He succeeded at last in stepping on the strings, frenziedly jerked his leg, broke them, and shouted, "And I won't be blackmailed! Don't rely too much on the maintenance." Then Varvara pulled the torn dress over her breast, covered herself up to the neck, gathered in her bare legs. She seemed now afraid to look at her husband, running about the bedroom in his underwear. She gazed at the window. Wetting her lips, she said, "Now, for the 2nd secret, Vasily Alexeyevich, since this is the way you look at things, I will tell you also. I didn't want to. No. After all, you have been my husband. But, Vasily Alexeyevich, I'm going to denounce you." Suchkov stopped dead. His long face, with the newly appearing shadows of unshaven cheeks, seemed deathly greenish through the sleeplessness of the twilight summer night. Quietly, sorrowfully, Varvara said, "Vasily Alexeyevich, you are a spy." There the conversation ended. Varvara lay down again and covered her head. Suchkov went into the dining room. Then he made tea for himself. Toward 7 o'clock he went into the bathroom for his clothes. He went out soon afterwards. 18th of June, 1 o'clock at night. Been on the lake. N has not come to the rendezvous. Waited in vain until 7 o'clock. Walked around the bungalow and saw a lock on the door. If that is a challenge on N's part, I'm not one to give up before the aim is attained. Spoke with M in the evening and frankly expressed my fears concerning Varya. M insists. I promised to be a good comrade. Worked out the plan together. Yes, M is right in saying that one must be modern, see the aim clearly, and destroy everything that stands in the way. That night, Suchkov slept in the dining room under an old military greatcoat. He did not hear how Varvara came quietly near the door and looked at him for a long time. In the black, narrow opening of the door, her face seemed deathly pale. On the 10th of June, Suchkov returned home from work earlier than usual and grilled the pork chops himself. Varya usually came in from the chocolate factory at 5:30. He opened the front door for her and said with a pleasant smile, "We must end our rowing, Varya. You have misunderstood me. I have misunderstood you. You have thrown an accusation at me and it has wounded me deeply. But now I understand that we are both guiltless. We must talk it over seriously, once and for all." Varvara repeated, looking into the darkness of the passage, "Once and for all." Then Suchkov brought the chops from the kitchen and called out, "Come and feed! I am the chef today." He drank several glasses of vodka, groaning good-naturedly. Even told a funny story about a mother-in-law and an inspector of taxes from the Rhinoceros. Varvara sat at the table somewhat on her guard. At last, rolling little balls of bread, he turned to the main theme. "You have overheard my conversation with Matti. A cinema-like situation develops. The wife finds out that her husband is a spy. Ha! I can understand your feelings, but, Varya, my dear, the real explanation is much simpler. Matti is the representative of a certain big firm, and you see they tread very warily. They are just collecting preliminary information to get their bearings, estimates, and so forth. But for the present, it is a strict secret. That's the sort of spy I am. Yesterday I at last softened Matti's heart, and he has allowed me to tell you everything, and put your fears at rest." He rubbed Varvara's hand. "And as for that girl, Nastya, be reasonable, Varya. It is not even a fleeting attraction, just playing with a kitten. I don't like the innocent." Varvara had suffered so much during these last days that she was glad to believe anything, and even against her will she believed her husband. What if it really was just her imagination? With the palm of her hand over her eyes, she said, "But didn't you say yourself that you never promised me you would limit your requirements to one woman?" "Chuck it, Varya. Worse things than that are said in anger." I shall never forget that talk last Sunday at table, especially Nastya being there and that friend of yours, and it was clear to everybody. You were tired of me, ready to throw yourself at the first woman that came your way. Nerves, Varya, nerves. Feminine imagination. I was speaking theoretically to keep up an interesting conversation at table. But you are a fine one as well, aren't you? Slapping me in the face. Varvara sighed deeply with her last breath of bitterness. She could not bear to suffer any longer. Leaving the chop unfinished, she went into the bedroom, put on a touch of powder, got her hair in order, thought a while, then changed her dress. And suddenly a great weight seemed to be removed. No sooner had she left the room than Suchkov seemed to crumple up, lowered his head, and began to beat out a tune on the oilcloth. Then he drank 3 glasses of vodka, one after the other without a snack, turned round on his chair and stared at the wall behind which Varvara could be heard walking about. "Varya," he called faintly and hoarsely, cleared his throat, and then loudly, "Varya, you know, I've got an idea." She returned to the dining room. "Let's go out into the air. We haven't had a walk together for a long time." Varvara suddenly smiled, trustingly and readily, just as she did a year ago at the cinema. Suchkov glanced at her and poured out some more vodka. "We'll have a walk and a talk. A man I know has a boat on the Godolay, not far from the Smolensky cemetery. Come on, dress. Don't put a hat on. Better take a shawl." In the anteroom he began to rub his forehead, waved his hand as though vexed. "Most vexing, I've quite forgotten. You go on to where number 6 stops in the Bolshoi and wait for me. I'll just call in at the House Committee offices." Varvara went away. Suchkov listened at the half-open door as she walked downstairs. It seemed that she had not met or spoken to anyone. Then he took a long time over putting his cap on in front of a mirror, looked round to see that he had taken everything, cigarettes, matches. On tiptoe, not knowing it, he went out of the flat, noiselessly closing the door behind him. Creeping, he came down to the house office, and there said to the official very loudly, "The wife's gone out somewhere and didn't take the front door key. Please give her the key when she comes back. I'm off to work overtime. Won't be back till late, probably." Behind the Smolensky cemetery, to the west of it, lay a deserted, barren, low-lying ground called New Petersburg. Here it was once planned to build a town as beautiful as a dream, all in marble and granite, a new Palmyra of the northern seas. But all they had time to build was a small number of 5-story buildings, with their windows looking gloomily at the sea, at the muddy shores with here and there a boat pulled aground, at the abandoned villa of Gregory Gregoryevich, who had one night got the fright of his life sitting on the roof during a flood, at the dikes, the piles of broken stone and iron scattered about the island, at the remains of the fountain showing through the grass. The lonely houses are inhabited, but there are few people about, especially in the southwestern part of the island. That was just where they were going to now. Suchkov, who walked ahead with his hands in his pockets, taking long strides, and Varvara, who could not quite keep up with him. In the distance, low over the mirror-like sea, hung the clouds, already coloured by the setting sun. The red, golden, watery green light of the sunset spread peacefully behind the Kronstadt fortification, behind the woody shores of Lakhta that hung as in a mirage over the bay. "Don't run, Vasya, what's the hurry?" repeated Varvara, gasping for breath. All the way to the cemetery, Suchkov had stood on the platform of the tram. On getting out, he offered Varya his arm. He was walking fast, ever faster. His small eyes jumped about restlessly over the faces of occasional passers-by. Round the corner, when before them spread a mirror-like sea, and above them the evening sky, and Varvara hugged close to her husband for a caress, he abruptly disengaged his arm and ran ahead. He stopped on the edge of a small cliff. Below, a thin sheet of water lazily licked the sand, the bits of broken bottles, the stones. "Curse, there's no boat," said Suchkov, looking at the sea towards the slumbering sails of the becalmed yachts. "We'll have to wait, curse it." He jumped down onto the sand, and, without turning, "Come on, jump, let's sit down." Varvara's heart beat furiously. She jumped, sat down on the sand, threw herself back, and, leaning on her hands, closed her eyes at the sunset. The action jerked her blue-striped frock over her knees. She did not pull it down, left it as it was. She wanted happiness so much this summer evening, that from the moment when she ran off to the bedroom to powder her face and to the very end, she was deluded, guessed nothing. Suchkov squatted down and smoked. He kept looking round and repeating, presently, wait a moment." In the distance, in the Godolay Golode Island Stadium, a band began to play, but that was a couple of miles away. Here the shore was deserted. "Vasya," said Varvara, with her eyes still screwed up. "I don't want a lot, you know. I am not like the others, jealous, tyrannizing. So long as I know you pity me, love me, what else do I want?" Shut up, said Suchkov through his teeth. Steps creaked on the cliff above, and Matti's voice said hastily, "Hurry up and get it over." Varvara straightened out, opened her mouth for some air, cried out. The most terrifying thing of all was her husband's ghastly pale long face. He looked at her with the fierce hatred of the devil incarnate. Varvara tried to jump up from the sand, but he grasped her leg, threw her down, briskly leapt onto her chest, put his icy fingers round her throat. He was strangling her, putting the weight of his shoulders into the work. Letting go with one hand, he picked up a brick from the sand and struck Varvara on the head with it several times, struck her till the brick broke. Then he got up from Varvara's chest, glanced back at her blood-covered face, and walked away along the edge of the water. Matti was by that time far away, walking across the waste grounds towards the cemetery. The end. Again, bit of a brutal one, that one. Apologies for how graphic that end is. But you know, it's Russian literature. Apparently that's what you get. What a nice guy, right? I also like the thing of he doesn't smoke, he said when he first met her, and he's smoking in that last bit. It's like, it's lies all the way down. But yeah. Woo! Let's go to a break, shall we? The next one's a little bit sillier, I guess. But yes, go do break-related things, and we shall be back in about 5 minutes. Bye for now.
turn. Hello, welcome back. Yeah. Cheerful stories tonight, I tell you. Oh god, it's too warm here. It's way too warm to have windows closed. By the way, anybody who... I don't know if it's just the UK, it must be just everywhere. Perseids meteor shower tonight. Apparently it's going to be a good one. So yeah. I'd hoped she would kill him as well, but she didn't. Very sad. Hey ho. It's cloudy. No. It's nice and clear here. I'm gonna have a look when I'm done. You missed the eclipse because of it too. Oh, that sucks. Right. Okay. I'm gonna start immediately on this next one because it's a little bit longer and hopefully it'll take us to time. Might take us a little bit over. We shall see, but I am warm. Right. If we're all sitting comfortably, then I shall begin. Bobok by Fyodor Dostoevsky. This time I am submitting the notes of a certain person. It is not I, it is by an altogether different person. I think nothing more in the way of an introduction is necessary. The notes of a certain person. The day before yesterday, Semyon Ardalyonovich suddenly comes out with, "And would you kindly tell me, Ivan Ivanitch, will the day come when you'll be sober?" A strange request. I don't take offence, I'm a shy person, but just the same, they've gone and made me out to be a madman. An artist happened to paint my portrait. "After all," he says, "you're a literary man." I acquiesced, and he exhibited it. I read, "Go take a look at this sickly face that is on the verge of madness." Even if my face is like that, really, how can one be so direct in print? In print, everything should be noble, there should be ideals, but here... At the very least, say it indirectly, that's what you have style for. No, he doesn't want to do it indirectly. Nowadays, humour and good style are disappearing, and swear words are taken for wit. I'm not offended, I'm not some God-knows-what kind of fancy man of letters to lose my mind over something like that. I wrote a story. It wasn't published. I wrote a feuilleton. It was rejected. I took a lot of these feuilletons around to different publishers, and was rejected everywhere. "You don't have enough salt," they told me. "What kind of salt do you want?" I asked with scorn. "Attic salt?" He doesn't even understand. For the most part, I translate from French for the booksellers, and I write advertisements for the merchants. "A rare treat, fine tea," I write, "from our own plantations." I made a bundle on a panegyric for His Excellency, the late Pyotr Matveyevich. I was commissioned by a bookseller to compile The Art of Pleasing the Ladies. I've put out about 6 books like this in my lifetime. I want to collect Voltaire's bon mots, but I'm afraid that they'll seem a bit flat to people here. Who needs Voltaire now? These days it's a cudgel you need, not Voltaire. We've knocked out each other's teeth, every last one. Well, and that's the whole extent of my literary endeavours. Though I do dispatch letters to the editorial offices free of charge, signed with my name in full. I give advice and make recommendations. I offer criticism and point out the proper path. Last week I sent my 40th letter in 2 years to a certain editorial office. I've spent 4 roubles on stamps alone. I have a nasty temper, that's what it is. I think the painter did my portrait not for the sake of literature, but for the sake of the 2 symmetrical warts on my forehead. It's a phenomenon, he says. They don't have any ideas, so now they resort to phenomena. Well, and what a fine job he did of capturing my warts in the portrait. They're lifelike. That's what they call realism. And as far as madness is concerned, last year a lot of people were put down as mad. And with such style. Such an original talent, they say.
And then towards the end it turned out that, however, this should have been foreseen long ago. This is still rather ingenious, so that one might even praise it from the point of view of pure art. Well, and then suddenly these madmen came back even smarter. There you are. We know how to drive people out of their minds, but we've never made anyone smarter. In my opinion, the one who's smarter than all the rest is the one who calls himself a fool at least once a month. An unheard of talent nowadays. Before, a fool knew once a year at the very least that he was a fool, but now nothing doing. And they've muddled things so that you can't tell a fool from an intelligent person. They do this on purpose. I'm reminded of a Spanish witticism when 2.5 centuries ago the French built the first madhouse. They locked up all their fools in a special building to reassure themselves that they're the sane ones. But really, locking somebody else up in a madhouse doesn't prove that you have brains. Kay lost his mind, that means that we are sane. No, that isn't what that means. However, what the devil? And why am I fussing about my brains? I grumble and grumble. Even the servant girl is tired of it. Yesterday a friend dropped by. "Your style is changing," he says. "It's choppy. You chop and chop, and then you've got a parenthetic clause, then you pile on another parenthetic clause, and then you stick something else in parentheses, and then you start chopping and chopping again." My friend's right. Something strange is happening to me, and my character is changing, and my head aches. I'm beginning to see and hear certain strange things. Not exactly voices, but it's as if someone were right beside me saying, "Bobok, Bobok, Bobok." What is this Bobok? I need some diversion. I went out in search of diversion and ended up at a funeral. A distant relative. A collegiate counsellor, however. A widow, 5 daughters, all young. What it must come to just for shoes alone. The deceased managed, but now there's only a little pension. They'll all have their tails between their legs. Excuse me. I had always been given a less than hearty welcome, and I wouldn't have gone now if it hadn't been such a special occasion. I took part in the procession to the cemetery along with the others. They keep their distance and put on airs. My uniform, indeed, is in pretty bad shape. It's been about 25 years, I think, since I've been to the cemetery. There's a nice little place for you. First of all, the smell. About 15 corpses had arrived. Palls of various prices. There were even 2 catafalques, one for a general and one for some lady. There were a lot of mournful faces, and a lot of bogus mourning as well, and even a lot of undisguised gaiety. The clergy can't complain. It's money. But the smell. I wouldn't want to be one of the local ecclesiastics. I took a cautious look at the corpses, not having confidence in controlling my impressionability. There were some gentle expressions, but there were unpleasant ones as well. Generally, the smiles weren't very nice, and some were quite far from nice. I don't like them. I have dreams about them. During the service, I walked out of the church for some air. It was a greyish day, but dry. It was cold as well. Well, it is October after all. I walked for a bit among the graves. There are various classes. The 3rd class costs 30 roubles, decent and not too expensive. The first 2 classes are inside the church and under the church porch. Well, they charge an arm and a leg for those. This time there were 6 third-class burials, including the general and the lady. I glanced in the graves. It was terrible. Water, and what water! It was absolutely green and, well, let's leave it at that. The gravedigger was constantly bailing it out with a bucket. And as the service was still going on, I strolled outside the gates. There's an almshouse right there, and a bit further on there's a restaurant. The little restaurant wasn't bad, fair to middling, and you can get a bite to eat and everything. It was packed with mourners. I noticed a good deal of merrymaking and heartfelt liveliness. I had a bite to eat and something to drink. Later I took part with my own hands in bearing the coffin from the church to the grave. Why is it that corpses are so heavy in their coffins? They say it's because of some sort of inertia, that the body is no longer in control of itself, or some such nonsense. It contradicts mechanics and common sense. I don't like it when people with only a general education rush in to solve problems best left to specialists, and that happens all the time amongst us. Civilians like to have opinions on military matters, even those that concern a field marshal, while people educated as engineers more often than not have opinions on philosophy and political economy. I didn't go to the prayer service. I'm proud, and if I'm only to be received out of dire necessity, then why should I trail along to their dinners, even if it is a funeral dinner? Only, I don't understand why I stayed on at the cemetery. I sat down on a monument and became suitably thoughtful. I began with the Moscow exhibition and ended with the subject of astonishment in general. Here's what I came up with about astonishment. To be astonished at everything, of course, is silly, while to be astonished at nothing is much more handsome, and for some reason is recognised as good form. But surely it's not like that in reality. In my opinion, it's much sillier to be astonished at nothing than to be astonished at everything. And what's more, to be astonished at nothing is almost the same thing as to respect nothing. And a silly man is not capable of showing respect. And above all, I want to feel respect. I thirst to feel respect, an acquaintance of mine said to me on one occasion recently. He thirsts to feel respect. And my God, I thought, what would become of you if you dared to print that now? And that's when I started daydreaming. I don't like reading the inscriptions on gravestones. It's forever the same thing. A half-eaten sandwich lay on the gravestone next to me. It was silly and out of place. I threw it on the ground, since it wasn't bread, but just a sandwich. However, dropping breadcrumbs on the ground isn't a sin, it seems. It's when it's on the floor that it's a sin. I should look it up in Suvorin's calendar. One might suppose that I'd been sitting there for a long time. Even too long. That is, I even lay down on a long stone in the shape of a marble coffin. And how did it happen that I suddenly began to hear various things? At first I didn't pay any attention and regarded it with disdain. However, the conversation continued. I listened. The sounds were muffled, as though they had pillows covering their mouths, and yet they were intelligible and very near. I roused myself, sat up, and began to listen carefully. "Your Excellency, this is simply impossible, sir. You declared hearts. I'm following your lead, and suddenly you have the 7 of diamonds? We should have made arrangements about diamonds earlier, sir." "What's that? You mean we should play by rote? Where's the attraction in that?" "You can't, Your Excellency. You can't play without rules. We absolutely must have a dummy, and the cards must be dealt face down." "Well, you won't find a dummy here." What arrogant words, however. Both strange and unexpected. One voice was so weighty and dignified, while the other seemed softly honeyed. I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't heard it myself. I didn't think I was at the prayer service, and yet how was it that they're playing preference here, and who was this general? That it was coming from under the gravestone there could be no doubt. I bent down and read the inscription on the tombstone. "Here lies the body of Major General Feodor, knight of such and such orders. Passed away in August of the year 57. Rest, dear ashes, until the joyful morn." The devil, he really is a general. There wasn't a tombstone yet on the other grave, the one the ingratiating voice came from. There was only a stone slab. Must be a newcomer. Judging by his voice, he was a court councillor. "Oh, ho, ho, ho! An altogether different voice could be heard coming from quite a new grave some dozen yards away from the general's spot. It belonged to a man of the common people, but modulated to an obsequiously pious manner. "Oh, ho, ho, ho! He's hiccuping again," suddenly resounded the squeamish and haughty voice of an irritated lady, who seemed to be from the highest society. "My punishment is to lie next to this shopkeeper." "No, I didn't hiccup at all, and I haven't taken any food. It's simply my nature. And still and all, my lady, these whims of yours just won't let you settle down here." "So why did you have to lie down here?" "They put me here. My wife and the little ones put me here. I didn't lie down here myself. The mysteries of death. And I wouldn't have lain down next to you for anything, not for all the money in the world. But my own capital got me my place here, reckoning by the price, madam. For we can always do that, put enough aside for our own third-class grave." "You made a bundle? Cheated people?" "How could we cheat you, when it seems there's been no payment from you since January? We've got a little bill in your name at the shop." "Well, now that's silly. In my opinion, it's very silly to look to have debts settled here. Go upstairs. Ask my niece. She's my heir." "But who can I ask now, and where can I go? We have both reached the end, and before the judgment seat of God we are equal in our trespasses." "In our trespasses?" the dead woman mimicked disdainfully. "And don't you dare speak another word to me." "Oh, ho, ho, ho!" "The shopkeeper nevertheless obeys the lady, your excellency." "And why shouldn't he obey?" "Well, your excellency, as we know, there's a new order here." "What new order is that?" "Well, you see, we're dead, so to speak, your excellency." "Ah, yes, but there's still order." "Well, haven't they done us a favour? What a comfort. If it's already reached this point here, then why bother questioning what it's like upstairs? But how they carry on. However, I continued listening, though with extreme indignation. "No, I would have lived a bit longer. I would have lived a bit." A new voice suddenly made itself heard from somewhere between the general and the irritable lady. "Do you hear, your excellency? Our friend is at it again. He's quiet as he can be for 3 days, and then suddenly, 'I would have lived a bit, yes, I would have lived a bit. And, with such an appetite, and with such thoughtlessness. He can't help it, your excellency, and he falls asleep. He's already fast asleep. After all, he's been here since April, you see, and then suddenly I would have lived a bit.' On the boring side, though," His Excellency observed. "On the boring side, your excellency. Perhaps we should tease Avdotia Ignatieva again." "Please don't. Spare me that. I can't stand that quick-tempered crybaby." "And I, for that matter, can't stand the two of you either," the crybaby answered contemptuously. "You're both incredible bores, and you don't know how to talk about the ideal. I know a little story about you, your excellency. Don't flatter yourself. About how a servant swept you out with a broom from under a certain married couple's bed one morning." "Nasty woman," the general muttered through clenched teeth. "Dear Avdotia Ignatieva," the shopkeeper cried out again suddenly. "My dear lady, tell me, and don't hold it against me, am I in the torments now, or is something else happening?" He's back on the same thing again. I had a feeling he would be, because there's a smell coming from him, a smell from his tossing and turning." "I'm not tossing and turning, ma'am. There's no particular smell coming from me, because I've still managed to preserve my body whole, while you, my lady, have really started to go bad, because the smell indeed is unbearable even for this place. I've kept quiet merely out of politeness." "Oh, you and your nasty insults. He's the one who reeks, and he blames me." "Oh, ho, ho. If only these 40 days would pass. I'd hear tearful voices above me, my wife wailing and the children softly weeping." "Well, what a thing to weep about. They'll stuff themselves with kutya and leave. If only somebody would wake up." Avdotia Ignatieva, the smooth-tongued official spoke up. Wait a little bit. The new ones will start talking. And are there any young people among them? Young people as well, Avdotia. There are even some men. Ah, just what we need. Wait, haven't they begun yet? His Excellency inquired. Even the ones from the day before yesterday haven't woken up yet, Your Excellency. You yourself know that sometimes they're quiet for a week. It's a good thing that yesterday and the day before and today they brought a whole lot all at once. Otherwise, you see, they're all from last year for 70 feet around. Yes, that should be interesting. Now, Your Excellency, today they buried Tarasevich, the actual Privy Councillor. I recognise the voices. I know his nephew who helped lower the coffin just now. Whereabouts is he, then? About 5 paces away from you, Your Excellency, to the left. He's almost at your feet, sir. There's somebody you should get acquainted with, Your Excellency. No, I shouldn't be the first to make a move. But he'll do that, Your Excellency. He'll even be flattered. Leave it to me, Your Excellency, and I'll... what's happening to me? Somebody's frightened, new little voice suddenly wheezed. It's a new one, Your Excellency, a new one, thank God, and so soon. Sometimes they're silent for a whole week. Ah, I believe it's a young man, Avdotia cried out. From complications, and so suddenly, the youth began to babble again. Just the day before, Schultz tells me you have complications, he says, and suddenly I up and die by the morning. Well, there's nothing to be done, young man, observed the general kindly, evidently delighted by the novice. You must console yourself. Welcome to our Vale of Jehoshaphat, so to speak. We're good people, you'll get to know us and appreciate us. Major General Vasily Vasilyev Peroyevdov at your service. No, absolutely not, sir. I went to Schultz, you see. I had complications, first in my chest and then a cough, and then later I caught cold, the chest and the flu. And then suddenly, quite unexpectedly, that's the main thing, it was quite unexpected. You say that it started in the chest? You say that it started in the chest? The official gently interjected, as if wishing to encourage the novice. Yes, the chest and phlegm, but then suddenly the phlegm and chest were gone, and I couldn't breathe, and, you know. I know. But if it was the chest, you should have gone to Ecke, not to Schultz. But, you know, I kept meaning to go to Botkin, and suddenly... Well, but Botkin's unreasonable, the general observed. Oh, no, he's not at all unreasonable. I've heard that he's so attentive and will tell you everything in advance. His Excellency was referring to the price. The official set him straight. Oh, not at all. Just 3 rubles, and he examines you so well, and you get a prescription. And I definitely wanted to, because I was told. So then, gentlemen, should I go see Ecke or Botkin? What? See whom? The general's corpse began to rock with pleasant laughter. The official followed suit in falsetto. Dear boy, dear delightful boy, how I love you, Avdotia cried out, beside herself. Now if only they put one like you next to me. No, I simply cannot countenance that. And this is the dead of today. However, I should listen to some more and not jump to conclusions. This whimpering novice, I remember seeing him in his coffin earlier, wore the expression of a frightened chicken, the most revolting thing in the whole world. However, what's next? But what came next was such a muddled affair that I didn't manage to retain all of it in my memory, for a great many of them woke up all at once. An official woke up, a state councillor, and he began immediately discussing with the general the project of a new subcommittee in the Department of Something Affairs, and in connection with this about the probable transfer of public servants, all of which the general found very, very entertaining. I confess I also learned a lot that was new, so much so that I marvelled at the ways by which it is sometimes possible to come by government news in this capital. Then an engineer half woke up, but for a long time afterwards muttered some absolute nonsense that our friends didn't bother him, but instead let him rest. Finally, the noble lady who had been buried under the catafalque that morning showed signs of sepulchral animation. Lebezniatkov, for the ingratiating court councillor whom I detested turned out to be named Lebezniatkov, was surprised and made a great deal of fuss that they were all waking up so soon this time. I confess, I was surprised as well. However, some of those who woke up had been buried the day before yesterday. For example, a very young girl, about 16 years old, but who was all giggles, disgusting and lustful giggles. "Your Excellency, Privy Councillor Tarasevich is waking up," Lebezniatkov suddenly announced with extraordinary urgency. "They? What's that?" The suddenly awakened Privy Councillor mumbled demandingly in a lisping voice. His voice sounded both capricious and imperious. I listened with curiosity, for during these past few days I had heard something about this Tarasevich, something highly suggestive and alarming. "It's me, Your Excellency, sir. So far it's only me, sir." "What do you want, and how can I help you?" "Merely to inquire after Your Excellency's health. Not being accustomed to the circumstances here, sir, everybody at first feels rather cramped, as it were. General Pervodievov would like to have the honour of making Your Excellency's acquaintance and wishes—" "Never heard of him." "For goodness' sake, Your Excellency General Pervodievov, Vasily Vasilyevich—" "Are you General Pervodievov?" "No, Your Excellency. I am merely Count Councillor Lebezniatkov, sir, at your service. But General Pervodievov—" "Nonsense, but I'll ask you to leave me in peace." "Let him be." General Pervodievov himself, with a dignified air, finally put a stop to the vile haste of his sepulchral attendant. "He's not fully awake yet, Your Excellency. You need to take that into consideration, sir. It's on account that he's not accustomed, sir. He'll wake up and then he'll take it differently, sir." "Let him be," the General repeated. "Vasily Vasilyevich! Hey, you! Your Excellency!" An entirely new voice suddenly cried out loudly and excitedly right next to Avdotia Ignatieva. It was the impertinent voice of a gentleman with a fashionably weary mode of expression and impudent delivery. "I've been observing all of you for 2 hours now. I've been lying here 3 days now. Do you remember me, Vasily Vasilyevich? Klinevich. We used to meet at the Volonovskys, where, I don't know why, you were also received." "What? Count Pyotr Petrovich? Is that really you? And at such a young age? I am so sorry." "And I'm sorry myself. But it's really all the same to me, and I want to get as much as possible from every quarter here. It's not Count, but Baron. I'm merely a Baron. We're some sort of mangy little barons. Our people were lackeys, and I don't know why. To hell with it. I'm merely a scoundrel from a pseudo-high society, and thought to be a charming polisson. My father was some sort of little general, and my mother was once received en haut lieu. Ziefel the Yid and I passed off 50,000 roubles in counterfeit banknotes, and I informed against him, but Yolka Charpentier de Lusignan carried off all the money with her to Bordeaux. And just imagine, my engagement had already been announced to Chevalevskia, just 3 months shy of 16, still in school with a dowry of 90,000 roubles. Avdotia Ignatieva, do you remember how you corrupted me 15 years ago when I was still a 14-year-old page?" "Ah, so it's you, you scoundrel. Well, at least God sent you, because otherwise here it's—" "You were wrong to suspect your merchant neighbour of smelling bad. I just kept quiet and laughed. You see, it's me. They buried me in a nailed coffin. Ugh, you're disgusting. But I'm glad all the same. You wouldn't believe, Klinevich, wouldn't believe how scarce life and wit are here." Yes, I know. Yes, I know. And I'm determined to get something original going here. Your Excellency, not you, Peroyevov, the other one, Mr. Tarasevich, the Privy Councillor. Answer me. It's Klinevich. I'm the one who took you to see Mademoiselle Fury during Lent. Can you hear me? I hear you, Klinevich, and I'm very glad. And believe me, I don't believe you for a minute and don't give a damn. I simply want to kiss you, you dear old thing, and thank God I can't. Do you know, gentlemen, the trick that this grand-père came up with? He died 2 or 3 days ago, and can you imagine, he left behind a shortfall of a total of 400,000 of public money. Funds for widows and orphans, and for some reason he was the only one in charge, so that at the end he hadn't been audited for some 8 years. I can just see the long faces they're all wearing now and how they're remembering him. A delightful thought, don't you agree? I've been marvelling for a whole year now how this 70-year-old geezer, who suffered from gout and rheumatism, managed to conserve so much energy for debauchery. And now we have the answer. It was the widows and orphans. The thought of them alone must have fired him up. I had known about it for a long time, and I was the only one to know, Charpentier told me, and as soon as I found out, I immediately hit him up in a friendly way during Holy Week. Give me 25,000 or there'll be an audit tomorrow. And just imagine, he could only come up with 13,000, so that it seems that his dying now was very expedient. Grand-père, do you hear me? Cher Klinevich, I quite agree with you, and there is no need for you to go into such details. Life has so much suffering and torments, and so little reward. In the end, I wished finally to have some peace, and so far as I see, I hope to glean all I can from here as well. I'll wager that he's already sniffed out Katish Berestova. Who? Which Katish is that? The old man's voice began to tremble with lust. Aha, which Katish? The one right here to the left, 5 paces from me, 10 from you. It's already her 5th day here, and if you knew, Grand-père, what a little rascal she is. From a good family, well brought up, and a monster, an utter monster. I didn't show her to anybody there. I was the only one who knew. Katish, answer me. Answered in reply the cracked sound of a girl's voice, in which, however, one could hear something like the jab of a needle. A little blonde girl? Grand-père babbled haltingly, drawing out the 3 words. I have long, babbled the old man, panting, dreamed of a little blonde girl, about 15 years old, and precisely in circumstances like these. Ugh, you monster! Avdotia Ignatieva exclaimed. Enough! Klinevich had made up his mind. I see that there's excellent material. We'll quickly arrange things for the better here. The main thing is to spend the remaining time enjoyably. But how much time? Hey, you, the government official, did I hear that your name was Lebenatsiakov? Not quite right. Lebesnyakov, court councillor, Semenyevich, at your service, and I'm very, very, very glad to make your acquaintance. I don't give a damn whether you're pleased. It's just that it seems you know everything here. Tell me, first of all, I've been wondering about this since yesterday. How is it that we can talk here? After all, we're dead, and yet we can talk. And it seems that we can move as well, and yet we don't talk and we don't move. What's the secret? If you wish, Baron, Platon Nikolaevich could explain this to you better than I. Who's Platon Nikolaevich? Don't shilly-shally. Get to the point. Platon Nikolaevich is our local homespun philosopher, scientist and master of arts. He's put out several little books on philosophy, but for the past 3 months now he keeps falling sound asleep, so much so that it's impossible to stir him. Once a week he mutters a few words beside the point. Get to the point. He explains it all by the simplest fact. Namely, that up above, when we were still alive, we mistakenly deemed death there was death. The body comes to life here again, as it were. The residue of life is concentrated, but only in the consciousness. I don't know how to say it. It's as if life continues by inertia. Everything is concentrated, in his opinion, somewhere in the consciousness, and continues for another 2 or 3 months. Sometimes even half a year. There's one fellow here, for example, who is almost completely decomposed, but once every 6 weeks he'll still suddenly mutter a word, meaningless, of course, about some Bobok. Bobok. But that means that an inconspicuous spark of life still glimmers inside him as well. Rather stupid. But then how is it that I smell a stench if I don't have a sense of smell? That's where our philosopher gets a little hazy. It was precisely in regard to the sense of smell that he observed that the stench that is smelled, so to speak, is a moral stench. The stench coming from our soul, as it were, so that in these 2 to 3 months one has time to look back, and that this is, so to speak, the final mercy. Only it seems to me, Baron, that this is all mystical gibberish, which is quite excusable given his circumstances. Enough. And the rest of it, I'm sure, is all nonsense. The main thing is that there's 2 or 3 months of life, and in the end, Bobok. I propose that we all spend these 2 months as pleasantly as possible, and to that end we should arrange things all on a different footing. Ladies and gentlemen, I propose that we not be ashamed of anything. Ah, yes, let's not be ashamed of anything, many voices were heard to say, and, strangely enough, even altogether new voices were heard, which means that meanwhile some others had only just awakened. The bass voice of an engineer, now fully awake, thundered his assent with particular readiness. The girl Katish giggled with delight. Ah, how I want not to be ashamed of anything, Avdotia Ignatieva exclaimed with rapture. Listen, now, if even Avdotia Ignatieva wants not to be ashamed of anything... No, Klinevich, I was ashamed. All the same, I was ashamed there, but here I so terribly, terribly wish not to be ashamed of anything. I understand, Klinevich, the engineer bellowed, that you're proposing to arrange life here, so to speak, on a new and rational footing. Well, I don't give a damn about that. As far as that's concerned, let's wait for Kudayarov, who was brought here yesterday. He'll wake up and explain everything to you. He's such a figure, such a gigantic figure. Tomorrow, I believe, they're bringing another scientist and probably another officer, and if I'm not mistaken, in 3 or 4 days a certain feuilletonist, and I believe his editor as well. However, to hell with them. We'll have our own little group, and everything will fall into place on its own. But meanwhile, I don't want there to be any lying. That's all I want, because that's the main thing. On Earth, it's impossible to live life and not lie, for life and lying are synonymous. Well, but here for the fun of it, we won't lie. The devil take it, the grave does mean something after all. We'll all tell our stories out loud, and we won't be ashamed of anything now. I'll tell about myself first. I'm a voluptuary, you know. Up there, all this was bound together with rotten ropes. Down with ropes, and let's live these 2 months in the most shameless truth. Let's strip ourselves bare and be naked. Let's be naked, naked, the voices all cried out. I so terribly, terribly want to be naked, Avdotia squealed. Ah, I see that we're going to have a good time here. I don't want to go and see Eka. No, I would have lived a bit longer, you know. I would have lived a bit longer. Katish giggled. The main thing is that nobody can stand in our way. And even though Perodevov, I see, is angry, all the same he can't touch me. Grand-père, do you agree? I absolutely, absolutely agree, and with the greatest pleasure, provided only that Katish begins with her biography first. I protest with all my might, General Perodyevov pronounced firmly. Your Excellency, the scoundrel Lebznatyakov prattled and urged in hurried excitement, with his voice lowered. Your Excellency, it will be to our advantage to agree. You see, there's this girl, and finally all these various little things. To be sure, there's the girl, but to our advantage, Your Excellency, it would really and truly be to our advantage. Well, if only as an experiment, well, let's at least give it a try. Even in the grave they won't let me rest in peace. First of all, General, you're playing preference in the grave, and secondly, we don't give a damn about you, Klinevich declaimed, emphasizing each word. My dear sir, I beg you all the same not to forget yourself. What? But you can't touch me. Well, I can tease you from here like Yulka's lapdog. And first of all, gentlemen, what sort of general is he here? It's there he was a general, but here he's a mere nothing. No, not a mere nothing. Here, too, Here you'll rot in your coffin, and the only thing left of you will be your 6 brass buttons. Bravo, Klinevich! Ha ha ha! The voices roared. I served my sovereign. I have a sword. The only thing your sword's good for is spearing mice. Besides, you never drew it. All the same, sir, I comprised a part of the whole. There are all sorts of parts in the whole. Bravo, Klinevich, bravo! I don't exactly understand what a sword is, the engineer exclaimed. We'll run from the Prussians like mice. They'll tear us to pieces, cried a distant and unfamiliar voice, but one literally transported with delight. A sword, sir, is honour, the general cried, but only I heard him. A prolonged and frenzied roar, melee and clamour broke out, and only Avdotya Ignatieva's impatient squeals, which bordered on the hysterical, could be heard. But quickly, quickly! Oh, when are we going to start being ashamed of nothing? Oh, truly, my soul is passing through the torments, resounded the voice of the man of the common people, and that's when I suddenly sneezed. It happened without warning and unintentionally, but the effect was startling. Everything fell as silent as the grave, and it all vanished like a dream. A truly sepulchral silence ensued. I don't think that they had become ashamed on my account. After all, they'd resolved not to be ashamed of anything. I waited for about 5 minutes, and not a word, not a sound. Nor can one suppose that they feared that I would inform on them to the police, for what could the police do here? I can only conclude that they must after all have some secret, unknown to us mortals, which they carefully conceal from every mortal. Well, my dears, I thought, I'll come visit you again, and with that I left the cemetery. No, this I will not tolerate. Indeed, no. It's not Bobok that troubles me, so that's what this Bobok turned out to be. Depravity in such a place, the depravity of the final hopes, the depravity of flabby and rotting corpses, and not sparing even the final moments of consciousness. They were granted, they were made a present of those moments, but most of all, in such a place, no, this I will not tolerate. I'll spend some time in other classes of graves here. I'll listen everywhere. That's just what needs to be done, to listen everywhere and not just in one part, in order to come to an understanding. Perhaps I'll stumble onto something comforting. But I'll definitely go back to them. They promised their biographies and various stories. Ugh, but I'll go. I'll definitely go. It's a matter of conscience. I'll take it to the Citizen. A portrait of one of the editors there was also put in the exhibit. Perhaps he'll publish it. The end. Thank you for listening.
apologies for my stumbling over all the flipping pronunciation. It's like, it doesn't matter to me how much I practiced them. Like, they're just not. They're not like They don't trip off my tongue easily, just because there's so many V's and Y's. But yes, I quite like the fact that there is a sneaky mention in there that our author is the next one to go, as is the editor. It's like, sorry mate, you're gonna die soon. But yeah. Happy birthday to the ground! Yes, I threw the sandwich on the ground. I was also thinking that at the time. There's a very loud fox or deer outside going honk. But yes, I hope you enjoyed that one. I thought that one was a lot more fun. I like the fact that he sneezed and they all just shut up. So yeah. And the consonant clusters are famously a pain to pronounce for non-Slavic languages, so you're good. Thanks, Lady Mephistopheles. Yeah, I saw you say that you would like help me out with things, but honestly, it wouldn't have made any difference, I don't think, because I would still stumble. But yeah. Yes, I went out in search of a diversion. I hit upon a funeral. Yeah, it was great. There are some good lines in these ones, actually. The one about the clock slicing away bits of life, ushering their corpses, was like, it's very, grim, but it's still pretty good. It's pretty good writing. But yes, I hope you enjoyed that. I don't know. Shall I raid? Who's on? I'm very warm. Excuse me. Oh, it is Steve on. Stephen. I don't know. Is he finishing or is he? No, it looks like he's still going. I think I might park it here. Yeah. Yeah, I'm very tired. It's very warm. I don't want to sit in front of the screen any longer than I have to. But thank you all very much for being here. It's been fun, if grim can be called fun. Tomorrow, come back tomorrow at the same time, 9 p.m. BST, for whatever Sam's doing. I'm not entirely sure. I think rereading some of our favourite older short stories from like the last year or so. He is probably taking recommendations, I would imagine, over on the Discord. So yeah, come back for that. And then on Friday, be hype. Be very hype. Because we're doing more Adventure Time with Dave. And it's going to be great. And he said he's drawing things, so who knows. So yes, come back tomorrow for more Bweek. And yeah, we shall see you there. So go take care of yourselves. And don't melt. See the meteor shower if you can. And we shall see you again tomorrow. Thank you very much. And good night.